Well, good afternoon or good evening or whatever time you're watching this show. Welcome to the West Ham Voice. Thank you for joining me. My name's Stel. If you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button and subscribe button and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. What am I going to talk about today? Well, a few updates, not complete updates because there are so many transfer stories to go through. I thought I'd focus just on our defence at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about all the latest players that are linked to us and the latest updates on those players that we're linked to. I'm also going to talk about the Europa Conference League because we now know who our opponents are. It was pretty obvious after the first leg, but I'm going to just cover that briefly as well. And I'm also going to talk about David Moyes and the apparent unrest that's going on within the squad, or so has been reported. I don't know if there is unrest, but I'm just going to go through that and trying to evaluate that to see if there's any element of truth in that at all. But before I do that, this afternoon, our squad numbers for the 2022-23 season have been confirmed. And there's a couple of surprises in there because we number one, Fabianski, Ben Johnson number two, Creswell number three, Kurt Zuma number four, Soufal five, Gianluca Scamacca number seven, Pablo Fornals is number eight, Antonio nine, Lanzini 10. Vlasic is still in there as number 11 for the moment. Flynn Downs, number 12, Areola, number 13, Cornet, number 14, Dawson, number 15, then jumped down to Bowen, number 20, Ogbonna, 21, Ben Rama, 22. Diop is still there at number 23. Nathan Trott, number 25. Naif Agerd, number 27. Thomas Soucek, number 28. Another surprise, Goncalo Cardoso. Do you remember him? The centre-back that we bought when Pellegrini was still here. Then he went out on loan for a couple of years. He's now back. And he's been given a squad number. Do I read anything into that? Not really. Number 32, Connor Coventry. Number 35, Darren Randolph. And number 41, Declan Rice. So that's great. Ashby hasn't been included in that. And he's one of the players that we thought perhaps would be a player that would break through. But he hasn't got a senior squad number. That doesn't preclude him from being included, of course, in any future senior team selections. But I'm surprised that his number wasn't included in there. And I'm guessing they're trying to do a balance as well. You know, number of domestic grown players and so on and so forth. But again, I would have thought Ashby would be thrown in there. But that's the squad as it stands, and that was broken, I think, about half an hour to an hour ago today. So I'll bring you a bit more of an update on that. But let's jump ahead to our first game of the Europa Conference League, which is going to be on the 18th of this month, the 18th of August. And we now know the first team that we're playing. As I said, it was pretty obvious, but the two legs were played. The second leg on the playoff legs, or the, I don't know what you call them, between B36 Torshavn and Viborg of Denmark, B36 Torshavn of the Faroe Islands, Viborg of Denmark. The first leg that was played last week, Viborg at home, they won 3-0. And then in the away leg on Tuesday night, they beat Torshavn 2-1. So what do we know about our new opponents, Viborg or Viborg? Let's first talk about the game. The 3-0 win. Jacob Bond, who's also the captain midfielder, scored from the penalty spot, followed up by their second goal, which was scored by another central midfielder, Clint Leemans, which was 3 minutes into the second half. Then on the 52nd minutes of the second half, Marocchi and Dioni scored the third goal, kind of killed off the tie. On Tuesday evening, Torshavn hosted the Danish side, and it was 0-0 at half time. But in the second half, Viborg made a few changes, stepped up a gear, scoring the first of the night on 64 minutes with new signing Nils Mortimer, who I'm going to talk about in a bit more in a minute, getting that goal. Torshavn pulled a goal back on the 79th minute, but on the 86th minute, the game was completely over with Alessandra Jatta making it 2-1 to Viborg. 5-1 on aggregates in total. So, as I said, what do we know about Viborg or Viborg? Depends. I don't know how you pronounce it. Shall we go for Viborg? Sounds more better, doesn't it? They were founded in 1896. They play at the Viborg Stadium with a capacity of 9,500 fans. Getting there takes up to an hour and a half by flight from Stansted to Billund Airport, and then it takes approximately 70 minutes by car to get to the stadium itself from the airport. Their history: Danish second division champions, Danish Cup Winners' Cup one time, Danish Super Cup winners one time. They played in a European competition before. They played in the UEFA Cup back in 2001. They play, obviously, in the Danish Super League, which have a number of teams, 12 teams. Current position after 4 games in that league are 7th. And their top players, Jacob Bond, who I've already mentioned, Clint Leemans, both decent players in the middle of the park, and they can score goals. J. Roy Grotz, who used to play for Leeds, and Niels Mortimer, who's just been signed to Viborg from Barcelona, but the Barcelona B team. They've got a big network of youth teams, etc. He never got to play for the senior team, and he was signed recently for Viborg from Barcelona. Their playing style, they're likened to a championship type Brentford team. They play primarily a 4-3-3 formation with a big front man and wingers to support. They're a quick passing team, good on the counter attack, and they recently beat the Danish champions, FC Copenhagen, by 4-2. And as I said, they're currently 7th in the league. So we play them on the 18th and the 25th of August. Now, the 18th, we thought maybe that there might be an opportunity to change the tie so that we have our first game away, because we know there are going to be train strikes on the 18th in London, throughout the country. And that's going to clearly affect fans being able to get to the stadium. But unfortunately, that fixture is not being changed. There are quite a lot of tickets still available for that game. I've got a feeling it's going to be maybe a half-empty stadium, but let's support them. It's our first game back in Europe. All right, it's the Europa Conference rather than the Europa League, but that's fine. I think we should take it seriously like we did the Europa League last season. Now, what happens after these playoffs? Well, the winners go into the competition proper, and will be one of 32 teams in the group stages. So as it stands, there'll be 22 teams going through, and 10 teams that will be knocked out of the Europa League playoffs will fall down. So 22 teams through, and 10 teams dropping from Europa League as well. Now, look, I don't know who we're going to play. It's going to be very confusing as to who we get in the next in the next round. But the draw for the group stages takes place on the 26th of August, which is the day after the second leg of the playoff game. So I'm going to do a show on that. So it'll probably be done at lunchtime, like the last draw was done when we found out we were playing either Torshavn or Viborg. So join me for that. I think that'll be a Friday. It must be a Friday. Yeah, 25th is Thursday. So that'll be on the Friday. Probably Friday afternoon is when the draw will be made. And I'll talk it through as the draw is being made. Right, let's get on with more domestic matters at the moment. So, look, many fans are worrying, and I would say, understandably so, that we've already started looking at more players leaving the squad than adding any more at this present moment in time. There are imminent departures of Issa Diop and Nikola Vlasic, and we know that follows to the departure of Arthur Masuaku from last week. And there are rumours that Saeed Benrahma might be on his way out as well. To be honest with you, of these 3 players that are imminently going out, Diop, Vlasic, and Benrahma, my feeling is Benrahma is likely to stay. However, watch out for what might happen in the January transfer window if Benrahma does stay. We know that Moyes, he gives Benrahma a hard time. There's absolutely no denying that. We kind of know that. It'll be interesting to see how Benrahma performs between now and the January transfer window, to see if he's going to actually stay at West Ham United, or if Moyes might consider selling him in January or moving him on in January. Will he move on now? I don't think he will. I'll be very, very surprised. I know there's talk about a £30 million interest from Nottingham Forest, etc. But I don't think Moyes. Look, Diop and Vlasic, for their reasons, they are moving on. We still haven't had that confirmation yet. But Benrahma, I'm not so sure. Now, there's been talk about, with all the injuries that we've got as well at the moment, with the injuries of our back line, Ogbonna still out for maybe another month. Dawson's got a thigh injury. We think he might be back for the game against Nottingham Forest at the weekend, but that's 50-50. We know Fabianski has picked up an injury. He might also be 50-50 as well. And Kurt Zuma doesn't look match fit at the moment, but we know he'll progress. So with all these players, with injuries and the players going out, etc. Moyes definitely has to get players in, and I know we've got a lot of there's interest in a lot of players, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But there's one of the things that's been talked about is how Moyes manages the squad in general. People are now beginning to suggest, that David Moyes makes a big deal about the harmony in the squad. How important it is to have a harmonious squad. He's talked about preferring a smaller squad, for that alone. And I just wonder whether that's beginning to backfire on him a little, because people are now talking about maybe Moyes himself has created disharmony within the squad and upset. Look, let's have a look at a few stats, shall we, from last season. Last season, we had an official squad of 24 players. Now, that does include Ajibola Olise in there. So I would argue that there was an official squad of 23 senior players, with Ajibola Olise making up the numbers somewhat. And of those players, we had 3 goalies and 2 right backs. We had 5 centre backs, 2 left backs. I'm kind of throwing Ben Johnson in there, and then 4 central midfielders. Masuaku, I put him in between sort of left back and left midfield. And then our midfield, attacking midfield, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say 6 there, and then we had 1 striker. Now, we know a number of players are left, and a number of players are due to leave. Now, I'm not including the players we've signed yet. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But with all the players that have left or are about to leave, which includes Vlasic and Diop, we'd have been down to 15 players. That includes Masuaku gone, etc., out on loan and so on. So we've added to that, haven't we? And we've added to that, and I've also included a couple of players. Now, Ashby, like I said, has not got a squad number. He's not in the senior squad, but like I said, he's number 52 or number 54 or something. Doesn't mean he can't get picked. So with Ashby and with Connor Commentary as the 2 additional players from the academy, and with the players that we bought, we've now got 22 players in the squad, senior players in the squad. If you take Ashby and Connor Commentary out of the equation, we've really got 20 players. So let's focus on the 20 at the moment, because I think that's more important. So as you can see, again, 3 goalies and 2 centre backs. 2 at the back on the right. 4 centre backs now, with Diop likely to imminently going. 1 on the left side, left back Creswell. And of course, we've got 4 midfielders. And again, what I've done with Cornet is done the same as I've done with Masuaku, where he's kind of in between, the back line and the attacking line, kind of a wing back. And then 4 central midfielders. And now we've got 2 strikers as well. And if we look at a little bit further, the kind of the players that Moyes used, we can see that, and this is where I'm thinking people are talking about a bit of disharmony in the squad. Of minutes played in the squad, the highest number of minutes played were by these 8 players. He relied heavily on Declan, Soucek, Dawson, Bowen, Antonio, Fornals, Creswell, and Fabianski. I think if Ogbonna had not been injured for most of the season, I think you would have seen Ogbonna amongst that list rather than Dawson. And then those players that were used sort of like, average amount of game time were Benrahma, Zuma, and again, Zuma would have played more if he wasn't as injured as he was, Lanzini, Johnson, and Soufal. And again, Soufal would have probably got more game time if he hadn't been injured too. Now, who would have suffered if Zuma and Soufal were less injured? It would have been Johnson, and it would have been Dawson. And then you look at the players that he rarely used. Look at Diop. 1900 minutes. Areola, okay, he was the sub goalie. That might happen again this season as well. Vlasic, only 1300 minutes. Masuaku, just over 1,000 minutes. Yarmolenko, just under 1,000 minutes. And Alex Kral, 255 minutes. Now, of those 6 players, 5 of them have gone. You know, Diop or about to go. Diop and Vlasic are about to leave. Masuaku's out on loan. Yarmolenko's been moved. You know, his contract's expired. Kral, his contract wasn't renewed after his loan spell. And the only player that's left is Alphonse Areola. And as I've just alluded to, Areola might be our second choice keeper again this season, and so he may not get much game time again next season. So with that, there's a suggestion that the players that have not been used that much are upset. The players that have not been used are kind of like, they're looking to move on or have moved on, and this asks the question about West Ham United and about our size. You know, you can see other teams like the Liverpools and the Chelseas and other teams like that who seem to have big squads, but seem to keep their players happy. Now, David Moyes, we know David Moyes uses his backup players. I don't want to call them that, but uses those players sparingly, the likes of Diop, etc. Even when we had injuries at the back, Diop was still not being used. Even when we had problems in central midfield, Kral was still not being used. Vlasic, whenever he was being used, it was used out wide rather than in his favoured central position. So you kind of understand those players, they want game time. Because we're not a Liverpool or a Chelsea, etc., they don't want to sit on the bench. I think there's this mentality, this thing about, big teams, but then again, big teams use their players better. The likes of Klopp at Liverpool will use the players. He will rotate. He will give players game time, and he'll give them good amount of game time. And Chelsea kind of tend to do that as well. And Man City, look at the size of the squad that Man City have and the quality of depth that they have. And yet those players are kept happy because they are rotated. David Moyes doesn't do that. David Moyes uses his players more sparingly. He kind of relied much more heavily on a core number of players, as we know. And I think this is where the upset has started. So Diop is looking around at him and thinking, well, I think I'm just as good as any other player. Why am I not getting more game time? Vlasic, saying I'm just as good as any other player. Why am I not getting any more game time? And seeing the number of injuries around and still not getting game time when the players that Moyes uses. I mean, look, Antonio, I could pick one out there. Antonio, all these other players have done really well throughout the season. People say Souček, was under par, but he still had quite a bit of game time. Cresswell, they're saying he was under par, but he still had quite a lot of game time. Antonio was under par, but he's still got a lot of game time. So you can see there are players there. If Souček wasn't playing that well, maybe you could have put Vlasic in, more attacking-minded game, but he was using Lanzini more often than he was Vlasic. Antonio, again, Vlasic could have played maybe that number 10 role or the ghost striker or whatever you want to call it, the false number 9. And maybe Antonio, when he wasn't playing at his best, maybe could have been put on the bench and Vlasic played a little bit more. But Moyes doesn't do that. So these players are looking at the squad and going, well, why am I here? What's the point of my being here? I'm not going to get any game time. I might as well move on. Now, I know a lot of fans are really upset. They're upset that Masuaku's gone. They're upset that Vlasic and Diop is likely to go. But isn't Moyes trying to improve? Agaird's come in. You'd say he would have been the replacement for Diop. It's just been really, really unfortunate that Aguerd has gotten injured. We're looking at bringing in a more attack-minded midfielder, and I think that's likely to happen. Moyes is looking for attack-minded midfielders. We've put bids in for players like Kostic. We put bids in for Zielinski, but they've not come off. And so I think Moyes is looking to improve. And so when he looks at the bench, he's not looking at players he doesn't fancy. When he looks at the bench, he'll be looking at players knowing that they're on a par with the players that are on the pitch. And so there'll be a much improved sort of strength in depth. But I get it. I understand these players being upset and wanting to move on. But if they're not going to play a part in the season, Masuaku clearly wasn't going to play a part. We got Cornet in for him. And if Diop and Vlasic are not going to play a part, isn't it better to move them on and bring in players that are going to play a part? But this is where the problem lies. And this is where fans are beginning to get a little bit concerned because we haven't brought in players to replace Diop and Vlasic as yet. There's loads of players that we're looking at the moment. But what I'm going to do for this part of the show, and I will do a separate show to talk about the attacking players, the midfielders, and the attacking players that we're looking at targeting. But I'm going to talk about our defense because that has become really pressing at the moment. Our defense, as I've said earlier on, Ogbonna probably won't be fit for another month or so. And goodness knows what he's going to be like when he does come back. Not because he's all of a sudden a rubbish player, but because I think potentially the injury that he sustained last season would have taken its toll. I don't think we're going to see the type of Ogbonna that we were accustomed to playing imperiously over the last few years. So I think Moyes has finally realised that. He's seeing him in training, he's seeing him playing for the under-21s, etc. And I think he's resigned to the fact that Ogbonna will not be the level of the player or the level of standard that Moyes is going to need for the Premier League. So, and then we've got, like I said, Zuma is being a bit sluggish at the moment. He'll take time, but it will take time for him back for him to be back to his best. And then Dawson, a thigh injury, that he's picked up. It might not be serious, but again, Moyes must be thinking, hang on a minute, the defense yet again, even though he thought that he would have had it sorted with a Gerd, defense is the area that he's going to really need to focus on. And so we move to the defenders. I mean, they keep changing day by day. Thilo Kehrer is meant to be our number one target, as I mentioned the other day. He's contracted with PSG till 2023, valued at around 17 million. And what broke literally half an hour or so ago is that the first bid that we put in for him was rejected, and we've gone in with a better bid. Look, he's valued at around 17 million. If we want to be sure, offer another million on top of that. He's a very, very good player. He's a right-footed centre-back that can play at right back. He can play at central defence. He can also play as holding midfielder. He's a German international, over 20 appearances for the senior team. You don't get into the German team if you're average. 1 year left on his contract at PSG, and PSG would rather move him on for a fee than see him leave for nothing at the end of next season. So we've made a bid. I think the first bid was about 15 million. We've gone back in. Let's hope that this bid has been accepted and we can actually do the business for this player. He sounds like a very, very good, decent footballer. And if we're looking at improving the squad, certainly improving the squad to move Diop on and getting Thilo Kehrer in sounds like the right approach. Look, if we don't get Kehrer, there are other players that apparently we're interested in. Eric Bailly, central defender for Man United, contracted till 2024. A £10 million bid, it sounds low, but a £10 million bid might be enough for this 28-year-old. And the reason why a £10 million bid might be enough is because he's hardly playing for Man United at the moment or last season. He only made 4 senior career appearances in the Premier League last season because he's fallen down the pecking order because of the competition, but also because of his injury record. He has missed a hell of a lot of games over the seasons that he's been at Man United, and he hasn't really reached his potential. West Ham wanted ideally to loan him with an option to buy, but Man United clearly want to sell. West Ham must realise, or in with regards to going in with a loan offer, is because they know if he gets injured, he could be a player that could be recovery room rather than being on the pitch. He's got 2 years remaining. Ivory Coast international. And we've made an inquiry about him, but I think it's Kehrer who we're really targeting. Next up, Tungay Nianzou from central defender from Bayern Munich. Contracted with them till 2024. Again, loads of competition for places at the German club. 20 years of age. Now, he sounds very interesting. Right-footed centre-back. He's been with Bayern for 2 years. He's only played a handful of games for them, about 28 games in those 2 seasons, because there's lots of competition. He moved from PSG, perhaps to get more game time at Bayern Munich. But just like PSG and just like Bayern, they have enormous amount of players that they can choose from. This 20-year-old could be a future player, but we're not ready to have a future player in central defence at the moment. We need a player that can sort of hit the ground running in a way. And I'm not so sure. I mean, there's an interest in him, but he would be a long-term player rather than the player that we need right now. Another one that has been reported is Jason Denayer from, well, he was at Lyon. He's now a free agent because his contract expired at the end of the season. 27 years of age, right-footed defender, can play primarily as a centre-back, but he can also play at left-back and right-back. He missed a couple of games due to ankle injury last season. But other than that, you know, he's got League One experience, Champions League, Europa League experience. He's also a Belgian international. Moyes also managed him. He knows him when he was at Sunderland. He's a free agent, but again, apparently, he's not a priority signing. So it sounds like we're throwing all our eggs in the Kehrer basket. And I hope that that's the one we're going to get for central defence. So we've got these players, but how do they compare? So let's just have a quick look at their comparison stats before we move to other defenders. Let's get rid of that. That's fine. Right. That's not the one I want. That's the one I want. If I can get the screen up. Here you go. So let's look at the four central defenders that we're linked to. Kehrer, he stands out. He's played more games than the other players that we're linked to, more minutes played, better pass attempts, fantastic pass accuracy rate for a central defender, 94%. These are stats in their respective leagues last season, by the way. 94%. He's not the best at aerial duel success rate. Bailly is better at that. But look how many games Bailly played in the Premier League last season. 4 games. In terms of interceptions and blocks, again, Kehrer is advanced to the other players. And if you're looking at any others, then you look at Denayer. He's got ground duel success rate and better clearances, and he's got more goals. But if you're looking overall at the best central defender, you can see why we're making Kehrer our number one target at the moment. So let's see what happens there. Right. Also, left back. There's still an awful lot of conversation about left back and whether we're going to get a left back in. A lot of fans are saying that we really need to focus on that as well. Now, Attila Szalai, mentioned him a couple of times before. Centre back for Fenerbahce, but a player that can play at left back. Valued at around between 10 to 13 million pounds. He's still got a contract for 3 more years at Fenerbahce. 24 years of age. Left-footed, central defender, versatile, can play central defender, left side of central defence, either in a 2 or a 3. Can play at left back, can also play at left wing back. Apparently, he's got a lot of pace on him. Good strength of character, drives forward, but he's got good defensive qualities as well. He's also a Hungarian international, and West Ham have rumoured to put in a £10 million bid that we've yet to receive a reply from Fenerbahce on. And the other left-sided defender is Borna Sosa of Stuttgart. Contracted with his club till 2025. He'll be a lot more expensive than Attila Szalai at around £21 million. Same age though, 24 years of age. Again, a player with great pace. He can play traditional left back. He can play the traditional left wing back role as well. Well, the new left wing back role as well. Fantastic crossing ability, great pace down the wings, very decent goal assist rate. You know, I think he supplied something like 9 goal assists last season, and it's suggested that he's definitely on his way to the Premier League, with apparently West Ham United being at the forefront of signing him. Let's look at their stats compared. Okay, so Szalai played more games last season, but it's interesting. Even though he played more games, it was Sosa that got more minutes on the pitch. Pass attempts, so Szalai is better at that. With a better pass accuracy rate as well, but crossing accuracy, you know, was superior for Sosa, and ground duel success rate better, and goals and assists. He got 8 assists in his league last season in the German league, whereas Szalai plays in the Turkish league. So we know that the Bundesliga is a far superior league. So you can see that overall, it would be Sosa that would be the much better option as a left back. We're told that he's the player that we're going for there. Get them in. Why not get both Sosa and Kehrer in? You know, if it's going to cost us around £40 million for the two players combined, they're players for the future, not just for the now, but for the future as well. And they would sort out our defensive issues overnight. So I'm going to do another show on our midfield and attacking players that we're interested in, because there's a hell of a lot more of those. And it looks like we've got a bit of a Chelsea loving. It seems that we're after almost every central midfielder from Chelsea that we can find. So join me for that show that's coming up soon on this channel. Thank you for watching. Do leave your comments and your like. Hit that like button. And like I said, if you're new to the channel, do hit the bell notification and the subscribe button. And I'll see you all very soon. And thank you for watching.